Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is who is really the bad guy? Russia, Ukraine, the US, NATO. Who is really the bad guy in this war? Now, I've been doing this a long time, 40 years. And I just want to say, I don't want to bring bad news. As a matter of fact, before I got called into the ministry, I used to be in the positive attitude business. I mean, I used to go out and give talks at Rotary clubs, and it was all motivational, uplifting, and encouraging. I used to teach people. I can't talk about it, but I mean, they have me under a contract, but positive. I'll just say that, positive. So my heart is not to necessarily bring you bad information all the time. But to me, knowing the truth and telling the truth is more important than friendships. In other words, I will lose a friendship in order to tell someone the truth. I will do that. And I know a lot of people say, oh, no, but that's not me. But I think that's one of the reasons God chose me. I was teaching, this would have been 1987. Was teaching a class at our local church on Bible prophecy, and I was teaching when it came to Revelation 18 that it had to be America. And I think that's one of the reasons God gave me the opportunity to come in to the ministry, because he knows my heart. I'm going to tell you the truth, whether you like me, whether you don't like me. In other words, as I said, I will lose a friend in order to tell them the truth. Now, think about that. That's not easy to do. It's not even wise to do. If you ask my wife, she'll say absolutely not, but if you're going to be a watchman, I'm going to say that that's one of the things you got to be able to do. So today we're going to talk about who is the bad guy, Russia, Ukraine, and NATO, and I got lots of information to bring to you. But before I get into that, let me just say, I hate asking for support. I hate it. I'll be so glad when the money comes in for us to drill a well in Israel. I will never, ever ask for donations ever again. So we're not in the red, but we are close. Several bills right now that need to be paid. We are unable to pay them. As my policy is, I always try to pay at least 10% of all of the credit cards. And today we had to settle for 5%. But normally what I'll pay is a whole lot more, but we're tight. So if you can help, now would be a very, very good time for you to do so. Also, now I'm bringing you for the first time news about our new conference we have coming up on Prophecy, Healing, and Deliverance. Prophecy, Healing, and Deliverance, September 11th through 14th of this year. And you can find out all about it by going to prophecyclub.com. You click on that button on the right side, it takes you over to this page. They'll tell you all about it. And it's very different than the Sevenfold Miracle Crusades. It's very different than the Power of Jesus Crusades, but this will tell you all about it. Okay, so our topic, who is the bad guy, Russia, Ukraine, or US, NATO? Now, this is a little detailed today, but if you want to understand the truth, I think that we've got to just wade through some things here today. If you want to understand what's really going on between Russia and Ukraine, and I think at the end of the day, it's going to be what gets Russia to attack America and destroy us in 1 hour, Revelation 18. So this was back March 3rd. The Road to War, How the Ukraine War Began, a factual accounting with documented proof from the U.S. National Security Archive, and that's the reason I'm bringing it to you, because it is the truth. He's got proof of it. Vladimir Putin did not wake up February 24th, 2022 and decide, okay, I think I'll just invade eastern Ukraine today, nor was the U.S. campaign to expand NATO into Ukraine a last-minute maneuver. Ukraine's future membership was discussed as early as 1994. In other words, it was plotted. It was planned. And like we had Biden, we've had some very evil people in controlling some very high positions in America. It hasn't always been Christians that will keep their word. And that's essentially what it's saying here. So he goes on to say this is the road to war. This is the history between Russia and Ukraine and what has happened. The road to war between Russia and Ukraine, 9 February 1990. We'll start there. In a deal approved by Mikhail Gorbachev, the last leader of the Soviet Union, as a quid pro quo for accepting German reunification in NATO, Secretary of State James Baker pledged that NATO would not expand one more inch to the east toward Russia. Columbia professor comes along and he argues that during the lengthy negotiations on the German unification, the U.S., European, and German leaders made explicit assurances or promises to Gorbachev that there would be no future NATO expansion eastward. See, Russia is afraid that America is going to try to take them over. Bottom line, that's what they're afraid of. Now, this will tell you some reasons that they have for having that fear. It's not without reasons. U.S. National Security Archive says documents prove this promise was made to Gorbachev by the U.S. Secretary of State James Baker. Now, let's go on to the actual video of Ronald Reagan telling Gorbachev he should pull down this wall.
Behind me stands a wall that encircles the free sectors of this city, part of a vast system of barriers that divides the entire continent of Europe. General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
So you saw, Reagan made the promise. Reagan said, tear down this wall. Now, Gorbachev understood that if he would pull down the wall and withdraw the Red Army from Germany and dissolving the Warsaw Pact, then the West would not come 1 inch towards Russia. But as soon as 1996, the next guy comes along, Bill Clinton, campaigned on enlarging NATO into Eastern Europe and was voted in. Then in 1999, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland joined NATO again. We, America, violated the agreement. Could nothing be done about it? Powerless. Yeltsin was infuriated with his friend Bill Clinton for breaking with past U.S. assurances on NATO expansion. But at the time, Russia was broke. At the time, America was very strong. Reagan was in, and they couldn't do anything about it, and the West knew it, and so they were taking advantage of it. So then 1999 comes along. Yeltsin's last words to Putin as he left were, take care of Russia. Then in 2004, George Bush comes along as now president, and 7 more Eastern European countries joined NATO: Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Slovakia, and Slovenia. Again, breaking the agreement, stabbing Russia in the back. Then 2008, it's not ended. Then George Bush announces that Ukraine and Georgia now are on the list to become NATO members. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says, I was very sure that Putin was not going to just let that happen. From his perspective, this would be a declaration of war, as they have said. Russia has said many times, under no circumstances will there be any NATO boots or military equipment in Ukraine, period. It's a red line, and we will attack. And they have changed their nuclear doctrine to allow that. So then a memo, classified originally, was ultimately leaked to WikiLeaks and made public. The memo spells out that the U.S. and NATO all knew asking Ukraine to join NATO would be a serious ramification up to and including war with Russia. So what did we do about it? We did what we wanted to do anyway. Evil people in control of our nation. So I'm not going to read all this, but let's just read just the red part. There would be no extension of NATO's jurisdiction for forces of NATO, not 1 inch to the east. Who's this from? U.S. National Security Archive. So what you're looking at is an official document that proves we made the promise. Now, this also is the classified document saying that it was all planned. We're not going to read all of it, obviously, but I just show you it's there, and you can watch it or you can go read it at hellturnradioshow.com. So now let's go to 2014. So the State Department official Virginia Nuland boasted that since the 2004-5 Orange Revolution, the U.S. had now spent $5 billion in regime change in Ukraine. Now, what is regime change? Well, that's what they're trying to do in America right now with all of these protests. We see evil people in whatever nation it is rise up and they protest and they bring a revolution, just like what happened in Cuba and many of the nations around the world. Evil takes over the government in the guise of a revolution of people they pay, they recruit, they train, they arm to rise up and take over the nation. And they did that many times. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Nuland made the boast on a telephone call, which was intercepted by Russian intelligence and made public. And to me, it was like 6 minutes long, and I decided not to play it. But again, you can go to hellturnradioshow.com, and you can listen to it if you want to. Putin stepped in Russian support for Russian-speaking separatist rebels in Donbass, in other words, into Ukraine. U.S. accelerated its efforts to arm and train Ukraine's army. Okay, so did you catch that? So we are the ones that paid $5 billion, along with our NATO buddies, to try to overthrow Ukraine, and we did. Why? So that we could then start moving in arms and start getting ready to take over and attack Russia. In other words, remember, that's the goal of the devil. He wants to take over the whole world. And if he can get America to do that for him, that's exactly what he'll do, and that's exactly what they're doing. NATO sent snipers into the maiden revolution in Ukraine. NATO knew it was overthrowing Ukraine's democratically elected president, but they don't care. So all those that say Russia's invasion in Ukraine was unprovoked or either completely ignorant of the facts or they're simply lying. In other words, we, America, evil people in control of our nation, Moloch and Baal worshippers, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, we are the ones that stepped across the line. We're the ones that broke the promises. After Ukraine President Yanukovych was forced to flee the country, United States Senator Chris Smith went on and actually boasted that we in the United States, working on the ground during the riots. Riots? Yeah, that's what they do. They get these riots, just like we saw several times. And I started to give you several, but many times in our nation. It's an attempt to overthrow our nation. Of course, we do know that the fall of America will start with an internal revolution in America. Anyway, they boasted that we in the United States helped impose regime change in Ukraine. No question, that's what really happened. So then 2014 rolls along. Right sector thugs carrying baseball bats confront ethnic Russians protesting the coup in Kyiv. 48 people that day were burned and bludgeoned to death. That's what the evil people do to take over a nation, and it's worked countless times. As a matter of fact, truth be known, the devil probably been doing this ever since Adam and Eve ate the fruit. Merkel later admitted that Minsk was a stall tactic to allow the West to build Ukraine's army up to NATO standards. We, America, was behind this. The West was to arm Ukraine for war with Russia. Then, 20 days before the incoming Trump administration, really that late? Yeah. Lindsey Graham, with a bipartisan group, I'm about to show you video, U.S. senators visited Ukrainian troops on the Civil War line of contact and encouraged them to take the war to Russia. Your fight is our fight. We're backing you up. Here's the video.
Your fight is our fight. 2017 will be the year of offense. All of us will go back to Washington and we will push the case against Russia. Enough of a Russian aggression. It is time for them to pay a heavier price.
I believe you will win. I am convinced you will win, and we will do everything we can to provide you with what you need to win.
Це те ж саме гільзи з ворожих БМП, які розмальовані художництвом Бердянська.
З Новим роком, дорогі мої!
Now, let's jump to 2021. Biden rejects Putin's proposed mutual security accords that would have left neutral Ukraine intact. For years, Russia tried to convince successive U.S. administrators that Ukraine was off limits to NATO membership. They've been saying this for years. We won't listen. Evil people want to take over Russia and the rest of the world too. But Russian concerns were brushed aside. Then in 21, Team Biden insisted that Russia doesn't get a say-so on who joins NATO. Oh, yes, they do. Okay, so let's put it in our position. Let's say Russia wanted to move nuclear weapons all along our southern border with Mexico and our northern border with Canada. Would we have a problem with that? Yes, we would. What's the same thing we're trying to do to Russia, see? We're trying to put nuclear weapons right up next to Russia's border. We get them as close to Russia as possible. Why? A threat and possible use, okay? Because we could trump up, evil people could trump up a reason to use them. All right, let's go on. Ukraine was ramping up artillery attacks along the line of contact. What? Okay, so kind of like Yemen is a proxy of Iran attacking Israel. Like Hamas is a proxy of Iran attacking Israel. Like Syria and the groups there. Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran attacking Israel. All three of those are proxies. Well, Ukraine is America's proxy attacking Russia. If you get that, that's what he's really saying here. So Ukraine will get and deploy nuclear missiles. What? Then it goes on to say Ukraine will never honor the Minsk ceasefire, which was an agreement, like another agreement our side is breaking. Russia learned the invasion of Donetsk city was imminent and recognized the breakaway Donbass, Luhansk Oblast as independent republics. So we have blood on our hands. We have broken promise after promise after promise. Let's go on. Russia launched its limited special operation in February. Actually, the date's February 22 of 22. Not a full-scale invasion, citing the UN principle responsibility to protect. In other words, just like Israel has the right to protect itself, Russia has the right to protect itself. And when we want to move nuclear weapons right up on Russia's border, and that's what they're really saying we want to do through Ukraine right now, they're not going to put up with it. And we wouldn't put up with it. Anyway, after all prospects for diplomacy have failed, in other words, Russia has done everything it possibly can to try to solve this Ukraine-Russia thing peacefully. But it's been Ukraine, with the big American eagle behind it, that's been the problem. Let's go on. Managed to find a compromise, and we're very close to finalizing the war with a peaceful settlement. That's right. Actually, Russia and Ukraine been pretty close, but what happens? Putin tried to do everything possible to conclude an agreement with Ukraine, but Joe Biden and Boris Johnson of Britain, who flew to Kyiv, urged Zelensky to keep fighting. We have your back. What? Under pressure, Zelensky chose to walk away from peace. We've seen him do that now several times. It's almost like this nation that is having to catch men walking down the street in Ukraine and basically kidnap them, take them out, put them into an army suit, put a gun in their hand, tell them to go fight and kill the Russians. In other words, there's not enough Ukrainians left to continue fighting Russia. But they're not looking for any kind of a peace deal. Why? Because Ukraine is the eagle's proxy to attack Russia. We, evil people in high places, still behind America to a certain degree, someplace in there, are trying to overthrow Russia. And Russia has changed their nuclear doctrine. You got to remember, Russia, I'll show you. We'll get there. So this is Hal Turner's summary. The irrefutable facts reported above cannot be disputed or explained away. The U.S. National Security Archive document proves that the U.S. promised NATO it will not move 1 inch east, and later it was President Bill Clinton who broke that promise, signed approval of NATO doing exactly that. The United States and our NATO vassals, who have planned every step of the ongoing situation and did so for years, the war in Ukraine is actually our fault. We are in the wrong. We gave our word to Gorbachev, NATO will not move 1 inch east, and we broke our word. He says, I'm sick to death of hearing how Russia's illegal and unprovoked invasion, Russia is defending itself from NATO expansion. Self-defense is legal. And as for unprovoked, no rational person can make any such claim. We in the collective West provoked this over and over again. These are the facts. They are not in dispute. We have the names, we have the dates, we have the proof of actions, and when are all these people going to be arrested? Well, that would be a good question. Now, who's the bad guy? The answer, America, NATO. We broke our promises. We broke written agreements. We started the war with Russia through our proxy Ukraine. And sadly, Russia is going to finish it in 1 hour. So how does Russia attack America? According to the prophecies, we get hit with 3 EMP blasts that knocks out all of our electronics. Every computer chip not protected by an EMP protector, which of course you can get at EMPShield.com. And if you use the promo code PROPHECY, it'll help your Prophecy Club. EMPShield.com. One for your car, one for each of your cars, one for your house. So we get hit by 3 EMP blasts. West, Central, and Eastern United States. Then, submarines on the East and the West Coast, almost sitting on our beaches, launch nuclear weapons. It's 60 seconds from launch to detonation in 1 hour. So, good luck trying to shoot those down. It ain't happen. If God wants the nuclear weapons to hit America, if God wants to take out America, and he does, and will, there's nothing going to stop it, okay? We had my favorite speaker of the 160 speakers making 330 DVDs, Henry Rupert, come and speak. He had had a vision. This was the story. I was in Wales walking and praying. That's what he did. He walked and prayed over cities. I was like over 500 different cities. Money would come in, the Holy Spirit speak to him. He goes to the city, had countless examples, guns at his head, hammers fall, bullet didn't come out, knives at his throat. God took care of him. Time and time and time again. We've had him in our home several times. He's gone to be with the Lord now. He says, I was in Wales, December 14th, 1986, and I went on top of the Eagle Tower in the Carnarvon Castle. All of a sudden, I was above the earth, looking down on the earth like a globe, and I saw all of these massive amount of ships and airplanes coming out of this inlet above Norway. They headed down between the United States and Europe, literally covered the whole Atlantic. Then I looked over on the globe of the United States. I saw coming in the United States these radio communication towers. Now, in 1986, they weren't there, but he saw them in advance. They were cell phone towers. I saw the jagged lines to draw that showed that communications were coming out. Then, all of a sudden, they began to sprinkle down on the earth like dust. I thought, oh no, they're not getting through. They're not getting through. They don't know what is happening. They're totally oblivious. Then I began to see these submarines emerging from under the surface. I was surprised how close they were to our borders. They were almost on our beaches. The missiles took less than 60 seconds from launch to detonation. I saw one hit Seattle, Bellevue, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, Miami, Tampa. I saw 6 nuclear blasts that just literally leveled everything. And I cried out and I said, oh God, when will this be and what will be the sign of its coming? A voice spoke from behind me and saying, when Russia opens her doors and lets the masses go, the free world will occupy themselves with transporting, housing, feeding, and caring for the masses and will let down their weapons and cry peace and safety. Then sudden destruction will come. Then is when it will come. Now you can watch this whole 2.5-hour DVD at watchprophecyclub.com. Watchprophecyclub.com. Eric Prince, on Sunday Morning Futures, the U.S. has no means to shoot down the Russia's Mach 9 hypersonic ballistic missiles that were just fired on Ukraine. Okay, who is Eric Prince? Well, he just happened to be a Navy SEAL officer and founder of Blackwater Private Military Company. He knows what he's talking about. During the discussion, Prince pointed out that Russia changed the game, that this past week, following the taunting of the U.S. and the NATO attacks against the Russian borders, he says the U.S. has no means to shoot down Russia's Mach 9 hypersonic missile like the one that was just fired into Ukraine last week. Russia fired its advanced hypersonic missile into Ukraine last week. Americans better wake up. There's no good outcome to this war. It needs to de-escalate and be done. There's no chance that Ukraine is going to take its land to Donetsk, to Luhansk, the areas in the east, certainly not the Crimea. It's been a fool's errand for the last year and a half, and we're all doing is wiping up the next generations for Ukrainian men and Russian men. Imagine if there was this broader clash with Mexico and there were Russian-provided weapons being fired inside the United States. There's no way we would tolerate that. This needs to be wound down soon. I really hope President Trump can get on it literally from day one. I wish they could do pre-meetings. But even that way, the Democrats pulled the whole Russia case. In other words, evil in control of our country is trying to bring the Russians to destroy us. Did you know that when we had Stanislav Lunev come and speak to Prophecy Club in 1998, he's the one that told us that Russia has smuggled some 50 suitcase nukes into America. The point is, we are in the wrong. We are making the Russian bear angry enough to attack us so that when she takes us out in 1 hour, Russia can say, wait. They attacked us first because they got to have an excuse before all the rest of the nations. But then God raises up China, Japan, and many of the nations. They go against the Russians. They defeat the Russians. They back the Russians to the gates of Paris where they sign a peace treaty. But they make the Russians their leader. Under the leadership of the Russians, it's Armageddon. All the world goes down to attack little Israel. Israel can't count on the help of the Jews in America because America has fallen and destroyed. So she finally cries for Messiah. Jesus returns on the clouds and defeats the armies of the earth in less than 24 hours, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye at the last trump. So if you can help Prophecy Club with a donation right now, I hate to ask, but we need it. We need it. Trump's going to fix everything, so we don't need a Prophecy Club. So our donations have just fallen through the floor. So now we have to count on you hearing from God to help us. But I believe you'll hear from God and you'll help us. Thank you.